"You're fired." Wait, no. That would have been cleaner. What Richard said was worse. He said it slowly, deliberately, in the particular tone of someone who has been saving something for a long time and has finally decided this is the moment to release it. "You're too emotional to lead." 6 words, in a glass-walled office, with the Venetian blinds 3/4 open, with 3 colleagues visible through that glass. People I had worked alongside for 6 years, who could not hear the words but could see Richard's face when he said them and my face when I received them. He slid the paper across the desk. "Performance review. Mid-level rating. The kind that does not get you fired but does not get you promoted. The kind that keeps you exactly where you are while the world moves past you." I picked up the pen. I signed it. I put the pen down. And I smiled. Not because I was okay with what he had said. Not because the mid-level rating was acceptable or the feedback was fair or the 6 words had not landed exactly where he intended them to land. I smiled because 47 minutes before I walked into that glass-walled office, before Richard had said a single word, an email had arrived in my inbox. From a name I recognized immediately. Margaret Chen, Chief Executive Officer, Meridian Capital Group. "I've been watching your work. I'd like to meet." 7 words. Richard had just given me 6. Hers were better. "My name is Sarah Chen, 34 years old, 6 years at Callaway Financial." Yes, Richard Callaway, the founding family, the last name on the building, the particular weight of inherited authority that follows certain people into every room they enter and that they mistake, sometimes for earned authority. 6 years. I had joined as a junior analyst when I was 28. I had spent those 6 years building something that I knew with the particular quiet certainty of someone who has been watching the numbers and was real. Client retention rate of 91%. 4 consecutive years of outperforming benchmark targets. A single institutional account, brought in because of a conference presentation I had given on my own time, on a Saturday without being asked, that represented 7% of the firm's entire annual revenue. 7%. Richard had looked at all of that, and he had given me a mid-level rating, because I cared too much about how people felt. I want to tell you what that actually meant, not his version, the honest version. What Richard called being too emotional was the specific quality responsible for a 91% retention rate, the attention to what clients actually needed, not just the numbers, not just the returns, but the anxiety underneath the numbers, and the particular fears that people bring to conversations about money in the future. My clients stayed because they trusted me. They trusted me because I listened. Richard had looked at the thing producing his firm's best retention numbers and called it a weakness. I walked out of that office at 3:47 p.m. I sat at my desk. I opened my email, and I replied to Margaret Chen. "I'm available Thursday." What happened in the 6 months that followed? What Richard Callaway did not see coming from the glass walls of his office is something I have wanted to tell for a long time. Today I am telling it. Thursday arrived in the way that important. Days arrive, looking exactly like an ordinary day until the moment it isn't. I had prepared. Not obsessively. I do not prepare obsessively, which is something Richard would probably cite as another weakness. I prepare thoroughly. There is a difference. Obsessive preparation is about managing fear. Thorough preparation is about respecting the room you are walking into. I respected that room. Margaret Chen's office was on the 31st floor of a building that looked, from the outside, exactly like every other financial district building in the city. Inside it felt different. The particular difference of a space that has been designed by someone who understands that environment communicates before anyone speaks. No glass walls. Actual doors. A room that said, "What happens here stays here." Margaret was already seated when I was shown in. 62 years old. 30 years in the industry. The kind of presence that does not announce itself because it does not need to. She stood when I entered, extended her hand. "Sarah," she said. "Thank you for coming." "Thank you for the email," I said. She smiled. "Sit down," she said. "I want to ask you something before we discuss anything else." Of course, I said. Your retention rate, she said. 91% over 6 years. In a market where the industry average is 68. I want to know, what are you doing that other people aren't? I looked at her. I listen, I said. She waited. Not to the numbers, I said. The numbers are easy. Everyone listens to the numbers. I listen to what's underneath the numbers. The fear, the specific anxiety that a particular client brings to a conversation about their financial future. The thing they are not saying directly, but that is driving every question they ask. Margaret nodded slowly. My manager calls that being too emotional, I said. Margaret's expression did not change. I know what your manager calls it, she said. I looked at her. How? I spoke to 4 of your clients, she said. Before this meeting, with appropriate permissions, through proper channels. I wanted to understand the relationship before I understood the numbers. What did they say? I said. 3 of them used the same word, she said. Independently, without knowing the others had used it. What word? I said. Safe, she said. They said working with you made them feel safe, not just financially. In the broader sense, like someone was actually paying attention to what they needed rather than what was convenient to provide. She looked at me. In 30 years, she said, I have never had 3 separate clients independently use the same word to describe an advisor in 30 years. I sat with that for a moment. Safe. Richard had called it too emotional. 3 clients had called it safe. Margaret had called it worth a meeting. I want to offer you something, she said. But first I need to tell you something honestly. Please, I said. Richard Calloway, she said, has had the same client portfolio for 8 years. His retention rate is 61%. He has not generated a significant new account in 3 years. She paused. He gave you a mid-level rating. I want you to understand what I think that rating reflects. What do you think it reflects? I said. A man, she said, who is measuring you against a version of success that his own performance cannot support, and who has confused his limitations with your weaknesses. The room was very quiet. The role I am offering, she said, is Senior Director of Client Relationships. You would build a team, hire, develop, create a culture. The mandate is to take what you have been doing individually and make it scalable. She slid a document across the desk. I looked at it. The compensation was 43% higher than what Richard was paying me. The title was 2 levels above where Richard had placed me. The mandate was to lead. I went home that evening and I sat with the offer for a long time. Not because I was uncertain. I was not uncertain. But because some decisions deserve the full weight of being felt before they are made. Because the 6 years, and the clients, and the conference, presentation, and the institutional account, and the mid-level rating, and the 6 words through, glass walls, and the 7 words in an email all needed a moment to be held together before I moved forward. I thought about Richard. Not with anger. I want to be precise about that. Not with the hot, reactive anger of someone who has been wronged and wants the wrongdoer to feel it. With something quieter. The particular sadness of understanding someone clearly, seeing the fear underneath the authority, the limitation underneath the assessment, the man who had stopped moving 9 years ago and had started using his stillness as the benchmark for everyone else. He had not been trying to destroy me. He had simply been unable to see me. And I had spent 6 years in a room with someone who could not see me. I accepted the offer the following morning. I gave my notice that afternoon. Richard appeared at my desk at 3:11 p.m., not with congratulations, with the expression of a man who has just received information that recontextualizes something he filed 3 days ago and does not like what the recontextualization looks like. Meridian Capital, he said. Yes, I said. Senior Director, he said. Yes, I said. Margaret Chen approached you, he said. She emailed me, I said. The morning of my performance review. Before the meeting, something moved across his face. The particular calculation of a man understanding a timeline. You knew, he said. When you sat across from me, you already knew she had contacted you. Yes, I said. And you still signed the review, he said. You gave me feedback, I said. I received it. The signature was professional courtesy. He looked at me for a long moment. Why didn't you say something? He said. About the email. About the meeting. I looked at him. Because the right moment wasn't that office, I said. The right moment was wherever the work took me next. He went back to his office. I spent my final 2 weeks at Callaway, Financial, doing exactly what I had always done, showing up completely, leaving everything better than I found it, because that is what you do when you have been built correctly. I started at Meridian Capital on a Monday morning. The elevator opened on the 31st floor, and I walked into a space that felt, from the first moment, like somewhere I was supposed to be. Not because it was comfortable, because it was the right kind of challenging, the kind that comes from being given a mandate that is larger than what you have done before, and being trusted to meet it. I built the team over 3 months, 6 people initially, then 9, then 12, each one hired for the same quality that Richard had called a weakness, the ability to listen underneath the question, to pay attention to what was not being said, to make clients feel safe in the specific, unmistakable way that 3 of mine had described to Margaret before. I walked through her door. We were not perfect. Building a team never is. There were hires that needed adjusting and processes that needed refining and weeks that were harder than others, and the particular challenges of creating a culture from nothing when culture is one of the things that cannot be forced but only grown. We grew it. 6 months after I started, on a Tuesday afternoon in November, Margaret asked me to present our division metrics to the board. I had 35 minutes. I used all of them. Client acquisition numbers, retention numbers, revenue generated by the advisory division in 6 months, compared to projections for the full year. The specific, measurable output of a team built on the principle that trust is not a soft skill. The board asked 11 questions. I answered all 11. When I finished, in the particular quiet of a room that has just received information that exceeds what it expected, Margaret looked at me from across the table. Board, she said, I'd like to propose a formal elevation. Sarah to Vice President of Client Relationships, effective immediately. The discussion lasted 9 minutes. The vote was unanimous. I walked out of that board meeting with a title that was 3 levels above the mid-level rating Richard had filed 6 months earlier. I did not call him. I did not arrange for the information to reach him dramatically. I did not need the performance of the moment. The moment had already happened. In a boardroom on the 31st floor with 11. Questions answered and a unanimous vote. What I did was call my mother. She answered before the second ring. How did it go? She said. Vice President, I said. The sound she made, I cannot describe it exactly. The sound of someone who has believed in something for a long time and has just been told it arrived. 6 months, she said. 6 months, I said. After he said what he said, I said, yes. She was quiet for a moment. Are you happy? She said. I sat with that question honestly, not the professional happy, the real one. The particular happiness of someone who is exactly where the work has placed them, who is doing the thing they are built for, who wakes up on Monday, mornings with the specific energy of someone whose work and their values and their way of being in the world are all pointing in the same direction. Yes, I said. I really am. Richard was restructured out of his position 4 months after I left. I know because 2 colleagues called me separately, both in the same week, both with the careful tone of people who think you will want to know something and are not entirely sure how. You will receive it. 61% retention rate. No new major accounts in 4 years. The firm had looked at the numbers and done what numbers eventually force organizations to do. Make the decision the numbers are pointing toward. I felt nothing dramatic when I heard. Not satisfaction. Not relief. Not the complicated pleasure of someone who wanted a specific outcome and received it. Just the quiet acknowledgement that reality tends to surface over time. That the numbers tell the truth eventually. That a 61% retention rate is not a management philosophy, but a result. And that results, accumulated over time, become impossible to explain away. I have been vice president for 14 months now. My team is 17 people. Our retention rate is 93%. I still care about how people feel. I have never once tried to develop emotional distance. I listen to what is underneath the question. I pay attention to what is not being said. I make people feel safe in the specific, unmistakable way that means they stay. Not because they have to, but because they want to. Richard called that too emotional. 17 people on my team call it leadership, and 93% of our clients call it the reason they are still here. Here is what 6 words, through glass walls, and 7 words in an email, and 6 months of building something taught me. When someone tells you that your greatest strength is a weakness, do not argue. Do not defend. Do not spend one breath trying to convince them of something they have already decided. Walk into the next room. Build the thing. Let the numbers speak. Let the client speak. Let the unanimous vote speak. Because the feedback was never about you. It was about the ceiling of the person giving it. And you were never going to fit under that ceiling anyway. My boss said I was too emotional to lead. He said it through glass walls, in front of 3 people. On the same morning, an email arrived from his biggest competitor. And 6 months later, on a Tuesday, afternoon in November, a board voted unanimously. Not to prove him wrong, because the work had already done that, long before anyone needed to say a word.